the fascinating and ever-changing world of agriculture. Let's hit the road here in Georgia and meet the farmers, producers, makers, and bakers who keep us all fed and keep us coming back for more. Straight ahead at the Fork in the Road.
I came from the mud, there's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree, there's roots where I stand.
Georgia farmers, artisans, merchants, and producers, we depend on these men and women every day of our lives through the choices we make and the food we consume. Their strategy and approach is always shifting, but the end game remains the same: results. There are a few trees that personify Georgia and the South, and when driving our interstates and back roads, there are a couple that seem to stand out, and for good reason. They are plentiful. Behold the Georgia pecan tree and the Georgia pine, often found in similar environments, but they are grown for completely different purposes. One for consumption and the other for product. Many products, in fact. We begin this episode all around Valdosta and the forest surrounding the Okefenokee Swamp to meet some folks who keep the South's timber industry moving, shaking, and growing. South Georgia soil is rich, and along with plenty of sunshine and usually plenty of rain, it's the perfect recipe for growing. And because of that combination, the roads down here are lined with ranches, farms, and an abundance of pine forests. Since 1894, the Langdale family name has been synonymous with forestry. The mantle of leadership passed down through the generations, and as the company has expanded and evolved, the family name remains the same.
The Langdale Company was started in 1894 by my great-great-grandfather, John Wesley Langdale. It was founded just below the Okefenokee Swamp in Council, Georgia. Started in the turpentine business, sawmilling in the woods, and made our way to Valdosta in 1946. Set up operations on this yard. South Georgia has a lot of landscape that's well suited for growing a pine tree, and so my family leveraged the opportunity to buy and own some land and use our land base to grow the products from within. When I started in the business 30 years ago, it was a pretty manual process. Every facet of what we do today is highly mechanicalized, and people that get to come visit the mill, they kind of think we do it the old-fashioned way, and they don't realize how much computer optimization there is, how much better we manage the resource, how much better we grow the resource, how much better we site prep the land for the resource. I mean, the beautiful thing about wood is we can do it again and again. We're very serious about our forests and managing our forests, and obviously it's the most widely used product in the housing market and has been for my life.
Before we explore the impressive plants and technology wonders of two Langdale plants, we journey to the source in the forests of South Georgia.
Hal Rowe, I'm operations manager for the Langdale Company. I help look after the logging, site prep, tree planting, road construction, maintenance, wildfire suppression, burning, control burning, about anything that's going on the ground we look after.
What are you looking for in these trees? I drive down the road, I see trees. I don't know if they're ready.
Well, the main thing is growth and vigor. Pine tree typically somewhere between 25 and 30 years old. It's going to reach its peak in size. The crown, the vegetation at the top of the tree, the crown of the tree will start decreasing, which means it's having a lack of vigor, and it won't be growing as much, won't be producing as much fiber. So when it gets like that, whether it's 25 or 30, we'll take it out and then start over.
Wine is something you got to plan for in advance. You're not going to make money for a few years, but you're talking about trees that are 25, 30 years. This is almost a generational business.
It is, and I've been doing this 29 years, and I'm seeing what I planted 29 years ago being clear cut and started over again. I probably won't see another rotation on, but we'll get it ready for the next people. This wood, we're gonna have pulpwood and chipping saw. The chipping saw, you're making 2x4s, 2x6s, things of that nature. The pulpwood's going to our local pulp mills. Some of this is going to Georgia Biomass over in Waycross for fuel wood. And then a good portion of the tree length and all will be going back to our OSB mill in Brooks County. The OSB is a dimensional board, like a 4x8, like a sheet of plywood, but it's oriented strand board. So it's chips of wood that are laid out and crossing each other, the grain, to make it strong, and then pressed and glued together, basically. It's taken over a lot of the plywood, where plywood used to be used on the rooftops and walls. Most of what you see now is OSB.
Pretty fascinating watching these guys work. I'm seeing trees falling down behind you and the guys grabbing 3 or 4 at a time. Yeah. You got to be a pretty skilled worker to do all this, I guess.
Yes, they are. I mean, these guys are really, they're top notch. And what you got to realize is that Greg's one logger out of, right now, I think we have 13 loggers on company land, and they'll haul anywhere from 60 to 100 loads each a week into our mills. So it's a lot of wood, a lot of logistics to get it there.
I've been doing it for myself since '96, and before that my daddy was in the logging, so I've been doing it all my life. The South Georgia area, this region is more logger friendly as far as the dirt, the conditions year round. We may have some sand and mud, but we can pretty much produce year round.
So as trees are cleared, new forests are planted for the next generation to follow suit. In fact, over 10,000 trees were planted in 2022. Let's now follow these trees to 2 Langdale plants where the pine is repurposed into 2 different types of Langdale products, dimensional lumber and oriented strand board. We begin with the journey through dimensionals with Environmental Health and Safety Coordinator Thomas Tripp.
This is the beginning process of the sawmill. We have 2 lines. We have a 300 side debarker and we have a 500 debarker. So both of these are being loaded one at a time, singulated, and ran through a debarker, stripping the bark down and continuing down the line. As we come down after the bark is peeled from the logs, it is scanned. And at this point, after the scanners scan it, it'll relay it to the saw to determine where the log needs to be cut. So if there's a curve or a sweep in the log, it'll cut it to 8 foot all the way up to 20 foot in 2 foot intervals. What we have here is our 500 debarking line and our 300. After the logs get peeled, it goes through a scanner, and after that scanner, it relays the input to these saws into the computers. And at that point, it determines where the log should be cut based on its diameter and its dimensions and its shape. This is the start of our quad band mill and canning system. And what you're seeing here, it goes through a metal detector before it goes to our saws. If it detects metal, it'll kick it off in a reject deck, and we'll actually remove the metal from the log and re-enter that log back into the system once it's removed. Each log has a little bend or a sweep to it, and what you're seeing here, as it's entering this system here, it's actually rotating that log to where it's horns up or horns down. You don't want the curve or sweep to face east or west, because when it goes to that canner, you want it to have a clean, straight cut on each side. The bandsaw will detect whether you can get 2 parallel boards off each side of that log. And after the boards are cut off the side, it'll go to an edge deck where it's cleaned up on both sides. Once the logs leave the quad band mill, this is where it's entering our profiler and gang saw system. This is where the lumber is made. The gang has 24 saws on the bottom and 24 saws on the top. And if you watch as it's intaking the log, it'll actually follow the contour of that log. If you try to cut a curved log straight coming in, when it comes out, it's going to be curved. By the way, following the contour of the log, it'll cause it to be a straight board when it comes out.
The folks at Langdale are incredibly conscious when it comes to environmental sustainability. In fact, the heat used in the plants for drying are run solely off the fuel produced by the byproduct from these trees.
Any sawdust that we generate here, everything gets collected, swept to the bottom to conveyors, which feeds our sawmill, which feeds our dry kiln, and we also sell it, so nothing gets wasted. Once the lumber leaves the gang saws, It'll come through, and we have employees up here sorting out bad cuts and dropping it below. And as it comes down what we call our waterfall system, it's gonna hit our lug loader to the trimmer. It'll come around, it'll go through a scanner. If you look here on the screen, it's scanning each piece of lumber, it's scanning all the dimensions. And if it tapers down on one end, or there might be a defect on one side, it'll cut that off in our trimmer box. 2x4 all the way to 2x12.
It's pretty fascinating how far this has come over the years.
You know, you can create all the programs, you still need these guys. So you still got to have these guys to have eyes on it. They see things the machines or scanners don't. Without these guys, this place wouldn't run. They are very important to the process. Everybody is. Our goal in production is around 900,000 to 1 million board feet a day, Monday through Friday. So that has improved in recent years. I think we've gone from 35,000 board feet an hour to 50,000 board feet an hour. As the green sawdust gets conveyed out of the sawmill, it'll go to the truck bin. And these trucks getting loaded by the truck bin, they'll either take it to our fuel shed for our dry kilns, or it'll take it to this dry kiln that has its own silo, which supplies fuel for the firebox. So all of our fireboxes here with our continuous dry kilns runs off of green sawdust generated by the sawmill. This is the spent sawdust after going through the firebox. We actually sell this, like we said, nothing gets wasted. They'll actually take this and extract the carbon out of it and make carbon filtration systems for municipal water treatment facilities. Or we actually have sold it to people that do additives to a potting mix.
So now that we better understand our 2x4s and other dimensionals, let's head to the OSB plant to meet Justin Moore and learn more about the fascinating technology and the construction of oriented strand board, OSB.
This OSB plant's been here since 1988. It's been a lot of growing, a lot of changing over the years. Tried to think progressively as far as being good stewards of the forest, as well as providing a good product and good jobs to the people in the community. Probably any home you've been in since 1990 has OSB in it. It's a good alternative to plywood, and just because it's cheaper doesn't mean it's any worse. It's all rated the same. As long as the builder builds the code, builds it properly, you're gonna have a nice sturdy home. I think we're the only 100% biomass fueled OSB plant in North America. We don't have any natural gas or propane. Everything we run on here to generate heat is the bark that comes off the trees, any limbs or tops that come off the trees, we're burning that, as well as the stumpage in the forest. When they grind that, they'll bring it here. So our OSB here is comprised of 4 layers. And what we're gonna do is the top and bottom layers, we're gonna lay parallel to working direction. The 2 core layers, we're gonna lay perpendicular to working direction. That crisscross pattern is what's gonna give the board its strength and make it safe to walk on as far as being a flooring product or a roofing product. So we get about 500 log trucks a week in this facility. We'll unload them 24/7. We've got 6 bins of logs here, and what we're trying to do is build up a bin of logs while we're feeding off another bin. What that allows the wood to do is dry out from where it comes in from the forest. That's just less energy we have to put into our drying process. These chains are gonna pull the logs into the debarker. It's just like a big dryer drum at your house for your clothes, except this one's 60 foot long, and the logs are just gonna tumble in there, and as they're tumbling, they're knocking the bark off of each other. The logs that are debarked, they're sent to the flaker, which is where we'll go next. You know, on the surface, making OSB is kind of a simple process. Okay, we're getting logs in, we're flaking them, we're drying them, we're adding glue, and we're pressing them. There's a lot that goes into making sure everything works together as one machine, from the crane all the way to the forklift pulling the finished product out. These flakes just been flaked. The length of our flake or the species of wood we're running, our resin, our press temperature. You go up north, you get some different species of wood, you may get a longer flake. Knives that are shipped to you have to be monitored, and we're lucky that a sister company of ours are the ones who sharpen these knives.
How often do they have to be sharpened?
We change knives about twice a day, but when you order a knife, each knife can be resharpened about 6 times before you have to toss it. You get about 8 to 9 hours of run time on a set of knives before you got to change it. So this is just one of our knives. We have a 30 knife flaker, but there's actually 60 of these in each flaker. This distance from the top of the counter knife to the edge is important. That angle here is important, as well as this angle on the counter knife itself.
I mean, how sharp? Is it razor blade sharp? Is it like kitchen
It's
knife?
right at razor blade sharp. The knife slides right here, and then the clamps bolt up right behind it. Flakes are now dry, and they're coming into a bin at the very top of the building. You can see how tall the building is, and they're going to come down through the process to the bottom. We know how many pounds per hour are coming through this blender, and per our recipe, we need X amount of pounds of resin per pound of flakes. Once all that's done in the blender, they fall out into these 2 separate conveyors here and go up to the forming line. The 2 surface layers are going to orient your flakes parallel with working direction. The 2 core layers are going to orient the flakes perpendicular with working direction. And that crisscross pattern is what gives the board its strength.
And that thickness that we see is going to get flattened into that final product.
So this final product is going to be about 5/8 of an inch thick once it's compressed. We're also trying to pull up any metal that may be left in the mat. We have magnets all throughout the process, and this is our last big electrode magnet. Now we're down here at the saw line. This is where the mat gets its final cut. Down here at the outfeed, this is where the boards get stacked into their units. The boards come out, they're weighed on the scale, and then they're put into our paint booth. So this is a sample board here. This is in a lot of homes here. This particular one will be for roof sheathing or walls. You can see some red paint. That's a heavy latex paint, and not only is it a branding color, it acts as a protectant. This paint keeps water from seeping in the edge and swelling up and giving you a sanding problem. This is our foil station. What we're doing here is applying a paperback foil. What the foil does is you have a couple different types of heat. Radiant heat coming from the sun is what this guy's trying to block out. So the way you'll install this is up in your attic. You're going to put the foil side facing into the attic. What this will do is help keep your attic cooler in the summertime, which is a big deal for us down in South Georgia, our Florida market as well, and it's going to help keep your air conditioner bill a little bit better.
What do you feel Langdale means to this region here as a whole?
This family is so very lucky to have a little over 1,000 employees that make it work. Because look, without our people, we wouldn't have a company, and we're so grateful for all that they do every day for this company.
So as the South Georgia forests continue to grow strong and technology in the world of forestry becomes more impressive and more efficient, the hardworking folks at Langdale aim to keep pace and stay a step ahead with a well-planned blend of high environmental standards and quality. Let's now move on over to Metter, where a longtime farming couple is growing their business along with some tasty Georgia pecans. A perfect day in a beautiful setting. Friendly farmers with talent and ambition, Curtis and Maddie know this land, these fields, and are working hard to spread the word about their pecans.
That's what I want to see in my nut right there, a quality nut. We out here in this South Georgia right here, and we right here in the Meadow area, and it's good, great land and soil. And my granddad, he the one that had the 2,300 acres of land. Then he had 13 kids. Everybody kind of had a part. We tend and farm this here, you know, cotton, peanuts, and corn and all that, you know. Well, my mom, as she was getting older, and I took over. And I decided, when I met this gentleman, he kind of encouraged me to go into the pecan business. He led me to go ahead on and start planting the pecan trees. And to this point, that's where I'm at right now, taking care of it and seeing after it and harvesting the pecans and selling and cracking and shelling, and that's where I'm at right now.
Working together is great. We've been married for 30, but 20 years, it took a new height. So now we're really working together, and I don't think it's as bad as Kurt thought it would be.
It ain't.
He didn't want it. He didn't know.
Have idea.
He had to grow to it.
Yep.
And we're growing in our marriage. It's getting more and more wonderful as the years go on. We're closer now than we ever have been. You know the difference in men and boys is the price of their toys. You know, he's just like a little boy when he's a little boy, but now he's a grown man. And you get to play with all his toys.
Yeah,
That's what keeps them young, right?
I guess that's it.
What's more fun, the sweeper or the shaker?
Can't do every one of them is a challenge because it's different. Get the gentleman from the shaking, and then when you get there with the sweeper, you see that baby sweeping them out to the side and blowing out that way, and it's just so exciting. And then when they get to harvesting, you know, you hear them coming into the harvester back there into the bin. So all of us got a different excitement.
And it can only help to receive a little extra help from some nearby friends.
We started with the Innovation Center in Metter, Georgia, Ms. Heidi Jeffers. They helped us with this logo. They told us what we had to have on our bags to sell them. We had lots of help from everybody to get this bag produced.
They've also received support from outside of Georgia's Southeast region. That's where Bill Green and the Common Market Southeast comes into play.
The Common Market started as a way to connect communities that needed nutritious food with small farmers who lacked access to institutional markets. And so the Common Market started in Philadelphia in 2008. The Common Market Southeast was started in 2016 as a way to connect those two communities. We're working on opportunities that will revolutionize their farm operations and help them to sell to larger markets so that they can support their families in a new way.
Mr. Green is just another part of the puzzle. Because we've been selling them to our friends and the public, but now we might have a chance to sell them bulk to Mr. Green, who's gonna do them for the food bank. And so now, instead of me trying to sell them to different people, I just bag them up, box them up, and ship them to Mr. Green, and he's gonna ship them to the food bank, and we're gonna make a lot more people happy. And that's gonna be real exciting.
We're working on opportunities that will revolutionize their farm operations and help them to sell to larger markets so that they can support their families in a new way.
We'll follow up with Bill to learn more about the Common Market in a future episode. But for now, let's journey a few miles down the road to a cracker and sheller who are working with Curtis and Maddie. And this is a fascinating sight. The growing is, of course, a major part of the pecan business down here, but sorting, cleaning, and shelling is another major part of the trade. Right down the road is Mixin' Pecan, run by Georgia farmer Emery Jones and his family. And the day we joined Curtis and Maddie, it was peak season for pecans. And it was one day after high winds, so the result was a super busy day and a plethora of Georgia pecans from farmers all over the area.
You know, however the case may be, I always have to give it thanks to the Lord for putting it in my mind and in my head. It always goes to Him. And I'm just thankful that whatever that He put in there from this day forward, that's what I'm going to try to produce, because He always leads you in the right direction.
We want to thank everybody too for liking our pecans, buying them, and helping us, you know, move a little higher.
Folks like Curtis and Maddie, this farm has been in their family for so many generations that you really sense the importance of the land. And helping farmers like Miss Maddie and Mr. Curtis hold on to their land is central to our mission here at the Common Market. So seeing their enthusiasm, we're excited as well about the potential of what we can do together.
And you've tasted their pecan.
Oh, they're amazing. I've been eating them all day.
So from tall pines and the amazing machinery in Valdosta that accompanies the business of timber, to the ornamental rows of Georgia pecan trees in Metter and beyond, people of the world can be grateful for these two towering treasures and the hardworking farmers and manufacturers who bring them to your homes and your hands. I'm David Zelski. See you at the next Fork in the Road.